Every move you make, every decision you think is yours, might already be part of a design. Not a conspiracy, but a pattern. A rhythm written deep into behavior itself. We call it conditioning. A language of rewards, punishments, and repetition that slowly replaces free will with habit. You wake up, you scroll, you buy, you comply. Not because someone forces you, but because the system learned what you respond to. It doesn't need to shout. It only needs to nudge. This is behavioral manipulation, the quiet art of control, through habit, pressure, and reward. Where obedience doesn't come from fear, but from comfort. Where the leash is invisible and the cage feels safe. Tonight, we'll uncover the tactics that shape your actions before you even realize they began. The tricks that make compliance feel like choice. And the patterns that keep you chasing the next reward, long after you've forgotten why. You're listening to Soul Lull, where we quiet the noise of the day and awaken the mind of the night. Every creature fears pain, but humans fear loss more than we crave success. We fear losing what we already have more than we desire gain. We ache at the thought of losing even a little. It's not logic. It's design. This is loss aversion, a quiet force that governs nearly every decision you make. You think you chase reward. You don't. You're escaping loss. In experiments, people would rather keep $10 than gain 20 later. They'll cling to a bad relationship, a failing investment, or a belief long proven false, just to avoid the sting of letting go. Loss doesn't just hurt, it echoes. Your brain treats loss as a wound, replaying it, magnifying it, trying to prevent it from happening again. That's why fear sells faster than hope. Why headlines shout danger, not peace. Why manipulation so often whispers, "You'll lose it if you don't act now." It's everywhere. In sales, in love, in politics. Last chance. Only 3 left. Don't lose what we've built. They don't need to promise gain. They just need to threaten loss. It works because your brain confuses ownership with identity. Once something feels yours, a job, a belief, a person, losing it feels like losing a piece of yourself. And the manipulator knows this. They build the illusion of ownership. They make you invest time, effort, emotion, until you can't walk away. Then they tighten the leash. Every message becomes a fear of losing. Status, love, access, approval. You stay, not because it's right, but because leaving would feel like death. That's the tragedy of loss aversion. It traps the intelligent. It weaponizes attachment. It convinces the victim they have something left to protect, long after the value is gone. Marketers build it into loyalty programs. Toxic partners lace it into affection. Leaders use it to command obedience. And even algorithms exploit it. Don't break your streak. Don't miss what's next. Every don't lose is a hook in your psychology. But here's the paradox. Everything you cling to will be lost anyway. Every possession, every title, every illusion of safety. It all fades. And the freer mind isn't the one that hoards. It's the one that releases. Freedom begins when loss loses power. When you can look at something, someone, some belief, and say, if it goes, I remain. Manipulation feeds on fear of emptiness. Awareness feeds on peace within it. So, the next time someone warns, you'll lose this if you walk away, listen closely. They're not protecting you. They're protecting their control. We don't just own things. We fall in love with them. Objects, ideas, relationships. The moment they become ours, their value multiplies inside the mind. This is the endowment effect. The illusion that what belongs to us is somehow worth more, simply because it's ours. You see it everywhere. Someone sells an old car and asks twice its price. A lover clings to a broken bond, saying, no one else will ever understand me. A person defends a belief not because it's true, but because it's theirs. Possession changes perception. Ownership rewrites logic. Our minds are wired to protect the things tied to identity, as if losing them means losing ourselves. The mug on your desk isn't just porcelain. It's your mug. The dream you had isn't just an idea. It's your dream. And in that small word, your, lies the seed of attachment, pride, and bias. Psychologists have tested it. Give two people identical objects. One receives it as a gift. The other must buy it. Ask them both its worth. The owner will always say it's worth more. Why? Because ownership creates emotional gravity. It pulls the object closer to your sense of self. And once something merges with your identity, you no longer see it clearly. You see yourself reflected in it. Manipulators understand this perfectly. They don't need to sell you something new. They just need to make you feel like you own it already. Your exclusive access, your personal account, your relationship with our brand. They hand you invisible ownership before you've even agreed. And suddenly, walking away feels like loss. The endowment effect isn't just about things. It's about beliefs, roles, stories. We overvalue our pasts because they are ours. We defend our mistakes because we made them. We protect ideas long after they stop serving us, simply because they once belonged to us. Even guilt becomes property. Even trauma becomes identity. We polish our suffering like trophies, unable to release them, because who are we without them? But there's a truth beneath the illusion. Nothing you own, not even your name, is truly yours. Ownership is temporary. Attachment is learned. And freedom begins the moment you realize that value isn't created by possession. It's created by perception. To let go is not to lose. It's to see clearly. The manipulator builds cages of belonging. They whisper, "This is yours," until you guard your own prison. But awareness dismantles those bars. You can admire what you have without mistaking it for who you are. So the next time you hesitate to release something, ask yourself, do I value it because it's meaningful? Or simply because it's mine? Because what you cling to too tightly starts clinging back. And sometimes the hardest thing to lose is the illusion of ownership itself. We don't fall in love with perfection. We fall in love with what we build. The crooked shelf we struggled to assemble, the relationship we kept fixing, the dream we refused to abandon. Each piece of effort binds emotion to outcome. This is the IKEA effect, the illusion that something is more valuable simply because we made it. We mistake effort for worth. time for meaning, pain for purpose. It's why we defend broken things, because throwing them away would also throw away a part of ourselves. Psychologists tested it. People who built their own furniture valued it far higher than identical pieces already assembled. The object didn't change. Only the story did. Effort transforms ownership into identity. And once something holds our effort, it also holds our pride. Manipulators understand this deeply. They let you build the trap. They hand you the pieces, kindness, promise, validation, and you assemble your own cage. In toxic relationships, they let you do the emotional labor. You keep fixing, proving, forgiving, until one day, you're defending the very thing that drains you. In marketing, they sell you the ritual of effort. Customize it, make it yours, build it yourself, because the more work you invest, the more loyal you become. Even cults and belief systems use it. They make you earn belonging so that leaving feels like betrayal. The human mind is wired to justify its labor. We hate to think effort was wasted, so we convince ourselves the result was worth it. We polish failure until it shines like devotion. We call exhaustion love. We call obsession commitment. We call survival purpose. But here's the truth. Effort does not guarantee meaning. Sometimes it just means you worked hard on the wrong thing. The mind clings to what it built, even when it's collapsing, because admitting it wasn't worth it feels like admitting we aren't. Awareness breaks that illusion. You can honor your effort without glorifying your pain. Sometimes, walking away is the final act of creation, building a life that doesn't depend on what you've already built. So the next time you feel proud of how much you've endured, pause and ask, do I love this thing, or do I just love that I made it? We tell ourselves we hate loose ends, but maybe it's the loose ends that secretly keep us alive. From effort, we move to obsession. Because once the mind begins something, it refuses to rest until it feels complete. That is the Zeigarnik Effect, the pull of unfinished tasks, the gravity of the undone. It's why you remember the one message you didn't send, the one conversation left open, the story that ended mid-sentence. The brain holds on, not to what's resolved, but to what's still echoing. A song that never reaches its final note. A thought you almost had. A goodbye that never came. To your neurons, the incomplete is more urgent than the finished. It lingers, like static that never fades. Manipulators understand this instinctively. They don't give you closure. They leave the door half open. A promise without a deadline. A question that sounds like hope. And you wait. You replay. You fill in the silence with your own imagination. The Zeigarnik trap is simple. Unfinished loops feed obsession. It's not cruelty that binds you. It's incompletion. You see it in relationships, where closure is delayed just enough to keep you tethered. You see it in entertainment, the cliffhanger, the to be continued. Your mind demands to return, not because it enjoys the story, but because it can't stand not knowing the end. Even in work, we chase completion like oxygen. The unfinished report, the half-written book, The unread message. Each one whispers, just one more step. But the manipulator's genius is knowing that closure ends control. The moment you feel complete, you stop chasing. So they keep you almost satisfied, never fulfilled. Think of it. They don't need to trap your body. They just need to leave your mind open-ended. The key to breaking the loop is not finishing the story. It's accepting that some stories don't end. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every silence is waiting to be filled. Peace begins when you stop demanding resolution. And in that stillness, the noise fades, the loops close, and the mind, for the first time, rests. The mind doesn't just cling to stories. Sometimes it creates them, and the body obeys. You take a pill, it's sugar, harmless, empty, but you believe it will heal you, and somehow it does. That is the placebo effect, the most mysterious alliance between mind and flesh. Science calls it psychobiological response, but what it really means is that belief itself can trigger biology. The heartbeat slows, pain fades, cells obey a thought they never heard. It is proof that the mind isn't just an observer of the body, it's a conductor. But every miracle has a shadow. If belief can heal, belief can also deceive. The same mechanism that comforts the sick can be weaponized by those who know how to sell belief. It's in medicine, yes, but also in marketing, in spirituality, in love. The manipulator doesn't need to give you power. They only need to make you believe you already have it. Because once you believe, you'll feel the change, and they'll take credit for your own biology. Think of it. The body listens to faith, not facts. That's why a fake cure can ease pain, why a false promise can calm fear, why a single word, spoken with authority, can make you trust again. They call it hope, but it's often leverage. Religions, brands, leaders, all play with the placebo's pattern. They sell a feeling, not a fact. And because your body responds to the feeling, you assume their power was real. It's the oldest illusion in history, that someone else holds your healing. But the truth is quieter. It was always you. Your chemistry, your nerves, your neurons. They responded to belief, not command, not drug, not prayer. Belief. When you understand that, you stop being the patient. You stop being the follower. You stop being the experiment. You become the mind that knows. It can alter its own state. That thought and flesh speak the same language, one called conviction. The placebo effect is not foolishness. It's proof that meaning has molecular weight. But like all power, it must be claimed, not given. Because the moment someone else tells you, I can heal you, they're not curing you. They're owning your belief. So keep it. Hold it gently. Use it wisely. Because your mind is the most persuasive medicine you'll ever swallow. Belief doesn't only heal the body. Sometimes it feeds the ego, quietly, sweetly, until it blinds the mind. You've heard it before. Phrases that feel like they were written just for you. You're kind, but misunderstood. You give more than you receive. You sense things others can't. They sound intimate, specific, like someone has seen into your soul. But they haven't. This is the Barnum Effect, also known as the Forer Effect. The tendency to believe that vague, general statements are deeply personal and accurate. It's how fortune tellers sound prophetic, how horoscopes seem true, how manipulators sound like they understand you. In truth, they're saying what could fit anyone, but what you want to hear decides what you believe. Your brain craves recognition. It wants to feel seen, validated, special. So when someone reflects even a fragment of your inner world, you open the door and let them in. And once they're inside, they don't need truth. They only need attention. This is how trust begins an illusion. The manipulator mirrors you, just enough to sound familiar. They use warm tones, open phrases, and leave gaps for you to fill with your own meaning. They'll say, "You've been hurt before, haven't you? You're the kind of person who forgives too easily." And you nod, because it feels true. But what's really happening isn't understanding. It's pattern recognition. Your mind searches for alignment, and in doing so, creates it. The Forer illusion works because the ego loves the sound of its own reflection. And when someone echoes that reflection, you mistake it for connection. This is the same trick used in cult initiation, marketing surveys, even toxic relationships. Only I truly see you. Only we understand what others can't. The words are empty, but the feeling is full. And feeling always outruns logic. Once you feel understood, you stop analyzing. You surrender curiosity for comfort. Because what's warmer than being seen? That's how the net closes. Not around your body, around your need for validation. To break the Barnum spell, you must love truth more than praise. You must value clarity more than comfort. Ask yourself, does this person really know me, or just what anyone would want to hear? Because real understanding doesn't flatter you. It challenges you. It's not always warm, but it's always honest. And that honesty, quiet and cold as it may seem, is the only mirror that truly reflects you. Not all illusions come from flattery. Some come from belief, not the belief in you, but the belief about you. Every word someone speaks about who you are plants a seed. And if it's repeated enough, if it's spoken with confidence, your mind begins to water it. That is the Pygmalion Effect. The power of expectation to shape behavior, to turn assumption into destiny. If someone expects greatness, you rise. If they expect failure, you fall. Because the human mind, hungry for belonging, adapts to the story it's given. Teachers see it first. Tell a student they're gifted, and they perform like they are. Tell them they're hopeless, and the spark goes out. It's not magic. It's feedback. Expectation changes tone. Tone changes behavior. Behavior confirms belief. A perfect loop, where prophecy becomes proof. But what happens when this effect isn't used with care? When it's used to control? Manipulators understand this law well. They don't command. They define. They tell you who you are and wait for you to prove them right. You're the only one who ever messes up. You're the calm one, don't make a scene. you always overreact. And you begin to act in harmony with the words, as if defying them would tear reality itself. That's how subtle control begins. Not by forcing behavior, but by framing identity. A master manipulator never needs chains. They only need definitions. Because once you accept a label, you start performing it. The Pygmalion Effect is neutral, a mirror, not a weapon. It can elevate or destroy. It can turn love into growth or expectation into pressure. And sometimes you become addicted to the role. You become the reliable one, the strong one, the selfless one, until you forget who you were before someone named you. But you can reclaim it. The first step is to notice which words shaped you, which expectations you've been rehearsing for years. Who benefits from you staying the same? Because every identity someone gives you is an invitation, not a destiny. You can accept it, or you can rewrite it. And that's the true reversal of the Pygmalion spell, when you become the sculptor, not the sculpture. We all want to believe in good people, in heroes, in someone who shines so bright that standing near them makes the world make sense again. Sometimes it starts with something small. A gentle voice when everyone else shouted. A look that made you feel safe. A gesture that felt sincere. And in that moment, the rest of them began to glow too. That glow has a name. The halo effect. It's the mind's habit of taking one good trait and letting it paint over everything else. You meet someone who's kind once, and you start assuming they're kind always. Someone confident, and you believe they must also be wise. Someone beautiful, and suddenly they seem trustworthy. Our brains are lazy painters. They fill the rest of the picture with the same color as the brightest part. Think about how often we fall for this illusion. The celebrity who gives to charity, so their scandals must be lies. The partner who comforts us one day, so their cruelty must have been a misunderstanding. The boss who speaks with confidence, so their judgment must be sound. We don't just see them. We edit them. We cut away the parts that don't fit the story we want to believe. That's the halo effect. It doesn't just blind you to the truth about others. It blinds you to your own need to believe in them. Because when someone shines, we feel reflected in their light. Their goodness becomes our reassurance. Their confidence, our stability. And so we protect the illusion, even from ourselves. Manipulators know this. They build halos on purpose. They perform goodness in public, so their cruelty in private goes unseen. They give one grand gesture of care and use it as proof forever. A partner raises their voice, then buys you flowers, and your mind whispers, "But they love me. Look how much they care." And the halo shines, and the shadow disappears. Leaders use it too. They make one promise that sounds noble, and every lie that follows feels justified. They say, "It's for your protection. It's for the greater good." And you nod, because the glow of their earlier goodness still blinds you. But light is not proof of purity. It's only proof of focus. Anyone can shine a spotlight. The question is what they're hiding just outside its reach. And yet, the halo effect isn't evil on its own. It's human. It's empathy's twin, our desire to see the best in others. But unchecked, it becomes self-deception disguised as kindness. The cure isn't cynicism. It's balance. To love someone, but still see their flaws. To admire without worship. To trust, but verify. Before you surrender your judgment, ask yourself, do I love who they are or who I believe them to be? Because halos fade, and when the light dims, truth remains. Quiet, imperfect, and finally, real. Light blinds, but so does shadow. If the halo effect makes us worship people for one shining trait, the horn effect does the opposite. It makes us condemn them for one flaw and forget everything else they are. It's the same illusion, just reversed. You meet someone and they make one mistake. They arrive late, misspeak, seem distant, and suddenly your mind rewrites the rest. You think, they're careless, they're rude, they're not my kind of person. And once that label lands, it sticks like tar. Every later action passes through the filter of that first impression. Good gestures feel suspicious. Kind words sound rehearsed. Even silence feels like proof. That's the horn effect. Our instinct to reduce someone's entire existence to the worst thing we've seen about them. It's fast, comforting, and cruel. Because judging is easier than understanding. Certainty feels safer than complexity. We forget that every saint has a temper, every villain a wound, and that no one is ever one thing, not entirely. Manipulators know this too. They use the horn effect to isolate, humiliate, and control. They spread a single story, one rumor, one slip, one edited truth, and watch as others turn away. You've seen it before. A coworker whispers, "You can't trust her." A partner says, "Everyone thinks you're dramatic." A leader smears a dissenter's name, and suddenly no one listens to them again. That's how the horn is forged, not through fact, but through repetition and fear. One seed of doubt becomes a forest of silence. It's how social control is maintained, not by convincing you someone is bad, but by making it costly to see them any other way. The horn effect kills empathy. It divides the world into good and bad, safe and dangerous, worthy and disposable. And the more certain you feel in that judgment, the more blind you've become. Look closely and you'll see it everywhere. A canceled name online, a friend forever defined by one argument, a stranger hated for a single opinion. The mind likes neat stories, heroes and villains, right and wrong. But people are messier than that. We all wear horns in someone's story. We've all been reduced to our worst moment by someone who didn't want to understand. So the next time you feel that rush of judgment, that spark of certainty, pause. Ask yourself, do I see the whole person or just the shadow I've chosen to believe in? Because the truth is this, both the halo and the horn are illusions made of the same light. One blinds with love, the other blinds with hate, and both keep you from seeing what's really there. We judge others harshly for their mistakes, but when it comes to our own future, we soften the truth. The same mind that condemns another's flaw whispers a lie to us. You'll be fine. This is the optimism bias, the quiet illusion that bad things happen to other people, not to us. We think we'll live longer, Choose wiser. Escape the storm everyone else will drown in. It's not arrogance. It's survival. Because to face the full weight of uncertainty would crush us. So the brain paints a softer picture, a future just bright enough to keep walking toward. We buy lottery tickets and think we might actually win. We speed through yellow lights and believe we'll never crash. We stay in unhealthy love because this time they'll change. That's optimism bias, our ability to cling to light, even when logic says otherwise. It sounds innocent, hopeful, even noble. But it's also how we stay trapped, how we ignore red flags, delay change, and walk willingly into pain. Manipulators thrive in this space. They feed on our optimism. They promise what we want to believe. They say, "It'll be different this time. I've changed. We're almost there." And you nod, because part of you needs it to be true. Hope is the easiest leash to wear, because it doesn't feel like restraint. It feels like faith. The optimism bias turns faith into blindness. It replaces awareness with comfort. It makes danger look like destiny, and consequence feel far away. Governments use it in propaganda. Corporations use it in marketing. Abusers use it in apologies. They don't sell lies. They sell tomorrow. And who doesn't want to believe in tomorrow? But optimism without awareness isn't hope. It's sedation. It numbs the instinct that should protect you. It keeps you smiling as the floor disappears beneath your feet. The truth is, bad things can happen to you. And admitting that isn't negativity. It's power. Because when you see risk clearly, you stop living like you're immune. You start living like you're awake. The mind will always lean toward comfort. It's your job to lean toward clarity. Hope should guide you, not blind you. So the next time you hear that inner whisper, "It won't happen to me," pause. It just might. But if you're prepared, you'll survive it. And that kind of optimism, the grounded kind, isn't a bias. It's wisdom. We remember the insults. We forget the praise. We replay what hurt us, word by word, tone by tone, while kindness fades quietly in the background. It's not weakness. It's wiring. The human brain is built to protect, not to appreciate. And protection begins with fear, with vigilance, with remembering what could go wrong. This is the negativity bias, the ancient survival instinct that makes pain louder than peace. Your ancestors lived by it. They survived because they noticed the snake in the grass faster than the beauty of the sunset behind it. The problem is, we no longer live in jungles of danger, but in jungles of thought. And the same instinct that once saved us now slowly eats us alive. You can feel it in your day. You could receive 50 compliments and one criticism, and the mind will only remember the sting. One message ignored, one face that turned away, one failure in a sea of success. That's what keeps you up at night. Because to the brain, safety isn't about what's good. It's about what could hurt. And that's where manipulators thrive. They don't build fear from nothing. They build it from your own biology. They speak in tones your nervous system already understands. Threat, guilt, shame, withdrawal. They know one insult erases 10 kind words. They know that punishment lasts longer than reward. So they balance cruelty and comfort, just enough to keep you hoping for the next soft moment. That's how trauma bonds are formed. The pain becomes the anchor, the relief becomes the drug, and your brain, desperate for calm, keeps crawling back to the hand that hurt it. The negativity bias turns love into dependency and fear into loyalty. You see it in relationships, where one harsh word outweighs 100 apologies. In politics, where outrage spreads faster than reason. In social media, where hate keeps the algorithms alive. Because attention follows pain. It always has. But awareness changes the equation. Once you understand that your mind exaggerates the negative, you can begin to balance the scale. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by noticing what isn't broken. The smile that didn't have to happen. The silence that wasn't cruel. The small, quiet moments of safety you've trained yourself to overlook. That's where healing begins, in choosing where to look. You can't silence pain. You can't forget what cut you. But you can teach your mind to hold space for both. The hurt and the calm, the noise and the stillness, the wound and the scar that came after. Because balance is not the absence of darkness. It's the refusal to live only inside it. The negativity bias once kept you alive. Now, awareness will keep you whole. And maybe one day, when your mind starts to replay the worst again, you'll pause and whisper back to it. Yes, but that's not the whole story. When something goes wrong, the mind wants a name, a face to point at, a reason that feels human. Because chaos is unbearable, but blame feels clean. That's the beginning of attribution bias, the quiet distortion that makes us blame individuals for what systems, circumstances, or luck create. You see someone struggling, and you think, they must be lazy. Someone cuts you off in traffic. They're selfish. A coworker misses a deadline. They don't care. You rarely stop to wonder if they're exhausted, or grieving, or fighting something invisible. Because it's easier to assign character than context. Easier to judge than to understand. Our minds crave simplicity, and other people's motives are too complex, so we fill in the blanks with our own assumptions. That's fundamental attribution error. When you explain someone's behavior by their personality, not their situation. It's why the poor are blamed for poverty, the sick for their illness, the heartbroken for choosing wrong. We see outcomes, not systems. We see actions, not the unseen forces behind them. And the worst part? We do the opposite for ourselves. When we fail, we blame the circumstances. When others fail, we blame their character. It's a bias built for ego protection and for control. Manipulators, leaders, entire institutions use attribution bias like a mirror maze. They redirect frustration downward. If a system is broken, they point to the individual. You're not working hard enough. You're too emotional. You didn't follow the rules. It keeps people fighting each other instead of questioning the structure around them. Blame is a powerful distraction. It divides communities, It protects hierarchies. It hides the mechanisms of control beneath moral judgment. And once blame becomes culture, compassion dies quietly. You stop seeing people as stories and start seeing them as statistics. You stop listening to pain because it looks too much like failure. Attribution bias is how empathy is erased. It's how victims become accused and how control survives without force. But awareness restores the balance. The next time you catch yourself thinking, they should have tried harder, pause. Ask, what made it so hard to begin with? Behind every action is a condition. Behind every mistake, a pressure you can't see. Judgment feels righteous. Understanding feels slow, but only one of them heals anything. When you stop mistaking people for problems, you start seeing systems for what they are. Machines that feed on blame to stay alive. Break the blame cycle, and the illusion of control collapses with it. We like to think we see people clearly. That when we describe someone, we're describing them. But sometimes, we're only describing ourselves. This is projection. The mind's quiet defense against self-awareness. When it can't face something inside, it finds someone else to carry it. You feel envy, but call them jealous. You feel guilt, but call them manipulative. You crave control, but accuse them of being controlling. Nothing changed in them, only in your reflection. Projection happens when emotion becomes too uncomfortable to admit. So instead of saying, I'm angry, your mind says, they're hostile. Instead of, I'm afraid, it says, they're intimidating. It's easier to export the feeling than to sit with it. Think about how many fights start this way. Two people shouting, each accusing the other of the very thing they're both doing. You never listen. You only think of yourself. No one's lying. They're just looking into mirrors and mistaking them for windows. Manipulators use projection like camouflage. They accuse you first, loudly, dramatically, so that you rush to defend yourself while they hide in plain sight. A liar calls you dishonest. A cheater calls you unfaithful. A controller says, you're trying to control me. They know the mind defends against accusation, not analysis. If you're busy explaining, you're not observing. You can see projection in relationships too. The person who calls you distant is often the one pulling away. The one who says, you don't care about me, is often struggling to care for themselves. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's pain trying to protect itself. The human heart can't stand contradiction, so it sends the discomfort somewhere else. And here's the truth we avoid. We all project. Every one of us. When someone annoys you for no clear reason, when you can't explain why you dislike them, pause. Ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? It's uncomfortable, but that's the point. Projection is the shadow side of self-discovery. Because what we see in others is often what we haven't healed in ourselves. The ones we admire show us what we could become. The ones we resent show us what we still fear to face. And if you pay attention, every person you meet becomes a mirror, some reflecting your light, others your dark. Breaking projection starts with honesty, the kind that hurts a little. When you want to say, They're so selfish. Ask, where am I protecting my own needs too fiercely? When you want to say, they're lying, ask, what truth am I avoiding? That doesn't mean you're always wrong about others, but it means you're never only talking about them. Once you see this, everything changes. You stop personalizing others' projections. You stop carrying pain that isn't yours. And when someone throws their shadow at you, you'll know to step aside. Not to fight, just to stay clean. Projection is how the mind hides from itself. Awareness is how it comes home. And sometimes, the moment you realize that what you hated in someone else was just the unhealed version of you, that's when the real healing begins. Words build reality, but they can also bend it. Change the words, and the same act suddenly feels different. That's reframing, the subtle art of changing perception by changing description. It's not a lie, it's an angle, a rearrangement of truth that shifts emotional weight without touching the facts. Collateral damage sounds cleaner than civilian deaths. Enhanced interrogation sounds better than torture. Re-education camp sounds more noble than prison. That's not language evolving. That's morality being rewritten. Every word carries a temperature. Change the word, and you change the heat of reality. A corporation doesn't fire people. It restructures. A government doesn't invade. It liberates. A manipulator doesn't lie. They protect your feelings. See how the same act feels different through a different lens? That's reframing, psychology's most elegant illusion. It works because emotion drives perception, and words drive emotion. When someone changes your vocabulary, they quietly change your judgment. Manipulators use this constantly. They know your brain reacts to tone faster than it reacts to meaning. They'll call control protection. They'll call jealousy love. They'll call punishment discipline. And you'll believe it, because the words sound soft, familiar, safe. That's the danger of euphemism. It replaces the moral sting of a truth with the comfort of language. But reframing isn't always dark. It's also how we survive. You fall, and instead of calling it failure, you call it growth. You grieve, and instead of calling it loss, you call it transformation. You struggle, and instead of calling it chaos, you call it becoming. That's positive reframing, using words to change not what is, but how you hold it. So how do you tell the difference? When is reframing manipulation, and when is it healing? Simple. Manipulative reframing hides harm. Healing reframing reveals meaning. One blinds you. The other opens your eyes. The manipulator uses language to soften accountability. The healer uses language to expand awareness. You can hear the difference in the energy of the words. One takes weight away from the truth. The other gives the truth a place to stand. Be wary of words that make cruelty sound civilized. Be wary of sentences that calm your conscience without changing your behavior. Because every power structure, every propaganda machine, every toxic relationship depends on linguistic anesthesia, the ability to hurt while sounding humane. But words can also cut the other way. Once you name something honestly, you take back power. It's not a complicated situation. It's abuse. It's not just stress. It's burnout. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. Truth, spoken clearly, is medicine. Because the moment you stop hiding behind euphemisms, you stop living in someone else's frame. Language shapes perception, and perception shapes freedom. So choose your words like doors. Each one you open leads you somewhere. Will you walk into comfort or clarity? Will you choose a story that soothes you or one that wakes you up? Because reality doesn't need to change. For truth to return, only the words do. Sometimes control doesn't come from power. It comes from confusion. Not by silencing you, but by giving you too much to hear. That's cognitive overload, or what psychologists call fogging. The tactic of flooding your mind with so much noise, so many details, that you can no longer think clearly. It's not a wall. It's a storm. And the more you fight to make sense of it, the deeper you sink into it. Imagine you're trying to find truth in a room full of shouting voices. Each one speaks just loud enough to distract, but not enough to clarify. You strain to listen, but all you hear is static, contradictions, half-truths, endless options. That's how manipulation hides today. Not behind silence, but behind excess. Governments do it. Corporations do it. Even toxic people do it. They bury you under information. They know if you're overwhelmed, you'll stop questioning. You'll choose the easiest story, the one that costs the least energy. And once you do, you're theirs. Because confusion creates dependence. When the truth feels too complex, you look for someone to simplify it for you. And that's when the manipulator steps in, with confidence, clarity, and control. You've seen it in arguments that go in circles. They drown you in words, contradict themselves, then blame you for being too emotional. You've seen it in politics. Endless numbers, reports, experts, until fatigue replaces awareness. You've seen it in relationships. When every time you confront the lie, the story shifts just enough to make you doubt your memory. That's cognitive fog, the feeling of drowning in logic that doesn't add up. It's not meant to convince you. It's meant to exhaust you. And exhaustion is obedience disguised as surrender. Because when you're tired enough, you'll accept any version of reality, just to rest. This is why confusion is so powerful. It erodes the will, faster than fear ever could. It's not just in words, either. It's in design. Apps overload your senses. Notifications, colors, endless scrolling. So your focus fractures. You forget what you came for. You stay longer, consume more, feel less. The algorithm doesn't need to control your thoughts. It just needs to keep them too busy to organize. And when the mind is tired, it confuses noise for knowledge, volume for truth, confidence for competence. That's how misinformation spreads. Not through lies, but through saturation. A million half-truths, layered until the real one suffocates underneath. So how do you escape the fog? Not by running faster through it, but by stopping inside it. Silence is resistance. Stillness is rebellion. When you stop reacting, you start seeing. You begin to notice which voices repeat, which words manipulate emotion, which facts never quite align. Confusion can't hold power over a calm mind. That's why every manipulative system tries to keep you reactive, scrolling, arguing, doubting, fearing. Because a mind that's calm is a mind that can choose. A quiet mind doesn't obey easily. It doesn't chase every voice. It listens selectively. It questions slowly. And that's dangerous to anyone who profits from your confusion. So they'll keep turning up the noise. More opinions, more updates, more fear, more urgent things that can't wait. But the truth never shouts. It waits. It doesn't compete. It just is. You'll find it in the quiet corners, in still thoughts, slow questions, moments where you stop trying to keep up and start to simply see. That's how you cut through fog, by becoming still enough to see where it begins. Because confusion is not the end of clarity. It's the test before it. Closing thought. All these tactics, framing, anchoring, priming, projection, overload, they all aim for the same thing: to take the wheel of your perception and make you forget it was ever yours. But awareness is the antidote. Once you can name the trick, it loses its magic. Reality stops being something shown to you and starts being something you see for yourself. Because control doesn't begin with chains. It begins with confusion. And freedom doesn't start with escape. It starts with understanding. The noise is getting louder. The world is getting faster. But your power has always been in the pause. Stay still long enough, and every illusion eventually reveals its outline. That's how you wake up, not by fighting the fog, but by remembering you were never lost inside it.